Hello, campers. This is Sports Biz Camps co-founder Patrick Stack. I saw you guys smile when I said campers. Really excited to have a presentation here from Kenny Mitchell, CMO of Snapchat. Kenny, thank you so much for joining us today.
All right, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
This is going to be a little different type of conversation. We've got our intern extraordinaire, Christian Murray, and ultimately Christian's just going to interview Kenny. So I think we're going to start with an introduction from Kenny. Just give us a bit of background about what you're currently doing with Snapchat and your pathway there. And then, Christian, you're going to make us proud and take it away with some amazing questions and conversation. We'll just let it flow. But thanks again, Kenny, for your time. And Christian, thanks again for all your support, man.
Love it. Well, nice to see and meet everybody. Really excited to talk to you all. As he said, I am the CMO of Snap Inc., which is the parent company for Snapchat and for Spectacles, which is the hardware application of Snap's camera. And I've been with the company for about a year, a little over a year. I've been in the world of marketing for a few decades. And you know, my responsibilities here as the chief marketing officer is really to try to help tell Snap's story to both consumers, to help grow the Snap community globally, and also to advertisers, to help get them to advertise on the platform, as well as to developers and content makers who are often business partners of Snap. So, you know, that's the goal, is to tell that story, help, you know, people understand the product, the proposition, the new services, hopefully get, you know, continue to grow the community globally and grow our advertiser base globally. That's what I do here.
Absolutely. And speaking to your point of telling Snapchat's story, can you give us like a quick snapshot of how you want that story to be portrayed to the consumer, such as myself?
Yeah, that's a great question. At the end of the day, you know, Snapchat at its core was founded around the principles of like communication and communicating creatively with your closest friends. So if you're a person who uses Snapchat frequently, you use it usually to communicate visually. You send pictures, you send emojis, you send videos. You basically are letting people know that you're thinking of them and kind of reaching out to them in the moment. And that is the primary way that people use the service. There are different elements of Snap. So it's content on there. There are games on there. There's augmented reality, which is one of Snap's things that's most known for. People often call them either lenses or filters, where, you know, you can have different effects that happen on your face or out into the world. But it's just a really creative way for people to kind of express themselves and communicate and learn about the world and have fun together.
Perfect. And transitioning back into your career path, I think it's important to highlight some experiences that you've had. You've been in NASCAR, worked for McDonald's, Gatorade, and the first CMO of Snapchat. So can you tell us just a quick background on how you got to where you are today at Snapchat?
Yeah. I'll start at the beginning and give you like a little Reader's Digest. So I'm originally from Philadelphia. Big Eagles fan here. I'm surprised I don't have on like some Eagles gear. That's kind of how I roll. But I spent a little bit of my childhood in Flint, Michigan as well. So I got a little bit of Midwest roots growing up, but then finished like high school back on the East Coast. I tell people I did the reverse commute of the Fresh Prince. So I went to college in the Northeast at Dartmouth College, and I was an athlete, which is, I know, central to the whole premise of this camp. So I was a basketball player in high school, went to Dartmouth and played basketball there as well. I was a point guard, and I'm actually in the school's Hall of Fame as a point guard there. My senior year, I led the nation in assists. used that actually as a catalyst to play overseas. I played in Portugal for a few years and came back to the States and played for basically the equivalent of the D League now, but it didn't exist back then. I played for like the Delaware Blue Bombers and the Lehigh Valley Bulldogs, like these little barnstorming leagues, and realized a 6 foot good athlete, but not amazing athlete, probably needed to take my ass to get a job. So I went to actually work at an advertising agency. I had, like kind of creative interests and aspirations. And I had a buddy that worked at a digital ad agency, and it was called TMP Worldwide. And they were the parent company of Monster.com, which was like kind of like LinkedIn back in the 90s. It was cool. I was learning about, the new world of the internet back in those days, and how people were using websites to try to communicate and attract employers or employees at the time for TMP. And I was starting to get like a little bit of a marketing bug. And, my goal was like, hey, could I combine my burgeoning interest in marketing with my passion for sports? So I went back to school and got my MBA. So I got my master's in business and landed at Gatorade, which was like that perfect combination, So it was a consumer good business. They're owned by PepsiCo. Everybody knows what Gatorade is, but it also is a sports brand. So you're like kind of like very much involved with the sports culture and thinking of marketing through a sports and consumer lens, which I love. So I spent the preponderance of my career there. Gatorade is out of Chicago. I was there for a little over 11 years. While I was there, did a lot of really, really dope stuff. I did like new product innovations. If you've ever heard of like Gatorade G2, the half calorie Gatorade, I helped to commercialize that and bring that to market. I worked on a variety of like really fun advertising campaigns. I did a lot of like packaging work and like distribution work, and did sports marketing work, which like is very envious for me to talk about, because it was really, really unique opportunity. But I, had the pleasure of working with like Michael Jordan and Dwayne Wade and Serena Williams and Cam Newton and just a variety of like really amazing athletes. Was really, really fortunate to be able to work with some of them. And after being there for about 8.5 years or so, the company was actually looking to continue to grow me. And they were like, hey, you're really talented. Can you go and work on Captain Crunch? I was like, nah, that's not the move. I'm really still very much, at least at the time, very passionate about sports. So I ended up leaving there and going to run a division of NBC Sports that had a sports property called the Dew Tour, which is like an action sports, like X Games. They have like BMX, snowboarding, skateboarding, things like that. And I love that because it gave me a bit of exposure to kind of like the media world and the event world, which was a little different than what I'd done in the past. And was doing that for a bit before I get a call from the folks at NASCAR that were like, hey, we are like trying to rev up and reinvigorate our marketing practice, and would like you to come and lead it. And, I'll tell you, honestly, I told them no, like the first 2 or 3 times, because I'd been to a race before, because I worked in sports. I was like, man, this is not exactly a place for a brother to be, spending a ton of time. But, the people that work in NASCAR were actually really great people. A lot of my opinion was really based on the fan base. And they had like a strong intent to begin to kind of transform their fan base to look more like, the US population, right? Like more representative of the diversity across the country. And I was like, I like that challenge. And had one of my mentors who said, hey, if you can go and run marketing for one of the top 5 sports leagues in the world, like, let's take the name off of it. Would you go and do it? And I was like, well, shit. Yeah, actually I would. So I went to NASCAR, and spent a few years there. Really fun learning experience. Like the passion behind like motorsports is really amazing. It is a event. It shows incredibly well, like the cars and the speed and like the pageantry and the scale of it all. So it was actually really, really cool. However, I was actually commuting back and forth. Like my family was in Chicago and I was flying either to Charlotte or to Daytona Beach, Florida for work. And it was beginning to really wear on me. And I sensed that like while I was enjoying NASCAR, it probably was not going to be the long-term spot for me. So I got a call from my friends at Gatorade and asked me to come and run basically all of their communication and advertising globally. So I went, did that for a bit. Got a call from McDonald's to come and do the same thing for them, and did that for a bit before getting a call from Snap to be their first CMO. What's interesting is during my time at Gatorade and McDonald's, I ended up doing a ton of work with Snap. So I've been on Snapchat personally as a user since like 2013 and have done like a lot of really cool marketing programs. So I knew the platform probably as well as anyone that actually worked for the company outside of like the engineers. So they were excited to bring me on board to help, begin to step their game up from a marketing perspective.
Wow, what a resume! If you were a 2K player, you'll probably be ranked at 99 with that resume you have. But I want to go back to a common thing that I've seen throughout your career. You continuously move forward and grow throughout your career. So what is like one skill or mindset that you've had throughout your career that's helped you move forward in your career?
That's a great question. I consider myself like pretty fortunate, like the career that I've described has not been true for everyone. And I think a combination of like hard work, a combination of luck, a combination of good timing. There's a lot of things that have kind of contributed, good mentor, like all those type of things. But I'd say, philosophically, like I've approached my career much as in the same way I did sports. With sports, like the success actually doesn't happen necessarily. It happens during the game, but it's actually the lonely work. It's the practice, it's the training, it's the discipline. It's that stuff that actually manifests itself in the game, but you did the work beforehand. You did all that work beforehand. And, whether I was an athlete or as I am right now as a professional, I know I'm not like the most talented. I know I'm not the smartest, but there's going to be very few people that'll work harder than me. We'll have like that commitment and that passion. And I kind of stumbled upon a career that I actually like kind of would be curious about it, even if I didn't work in marketing. I just love creativity. I love advertising. I love storytelling. That's the kind of stuff that I'm like, I'd be excited about, even if I was, working on at the plant in GM, I'd still be curious about those type of things. So I've had that, the fortunate kind of luck of doing what I call these like 3 concentric circles that are like magic. Like one is like finding a thing that you are passionate about. 2 is finding something that you're good at. And 3 is finding something people will pay you for. If you land in the middle of those 3 circles, that's like a wonderful place to be. And I've been fortunate enough to do that through my career. But the mindset is just similar to how I was as an athlete. It was the work, it was the training, it was like, one of the things that one of my coaches told me is like the 2 things you can control is like how you prepare and how you respond, so like just preparing as well as I can, the outcome will be what it is, respond as well as you can so that you're, ready and geared up to tackle the next challenge, tackle the next question or what have you. And then the other thing is like, I was a point guard. And point guards are responsible for kind of being the coach on the floor, right? They're like setting the tempo, they're setting the game plan. And as a point guard, like you have to know how to deal with different personalities. You have to know how to deal with people with different styles. You have to be able to put people in position to succeed based on their skill set. When I was in college, my 2 guard, he was not a very good ball handler. So I could not give him the ball and expect him to be able to make a bunch of moves to go and score. I got to put him in a position where he could, either turn around and shoot or, finish off a layup or something like that. Same with my center. He had his own challenge. So my job was to put these people in the best place to succeed, to understand who they were and how to motivate them. Sometimes it was, being a little tough love. Sometimes it's a little pat on the butt and telling them to get up and go. So like some of those interpersonal skills that you learn through sports, those leadership skills that you learn through sports, and how to be a good teammate and a good leader. Between that and kind of the work ethic that you develop through sports are two like big guiding principles for me as I've used across my career.
Absolutely. And being that our high school students are the audience for us, what things can they do to kind of find that niche or get involved and to kind of find that realization of there is a career in sports, and what things can they do to actually achieve going into sports?
Yeah, well, I'd say this generation has an advantage that I did not have growing up, where you actually there's a lot of information out there. When I was in high school, there was no internet. So I did not know what careers in sports looked like. I didn't know. And by the way, a lot of principles around careers don't necessarily have to be in sports. They could be in music, they can be in entertainment, they can be in, law, could be in the medical field. But I didn't even have like a good sense of what a marketing career looked like. I did not know a job like mine existed, the one that I have now or the ones that I've had in the past, just because I didn't have much exposure to them. So what I'd say first and foremost is like, try and understand what like the landscape looks like in terms of what type of jobs there are to have in sports. Because it was pretty frequent when I worked at Gatorade that I get people that say, hey, I want to work in sports. What do I do? Like, I want to work in sports. Help me. And my next question would be like, well, what do you want to do? And you this generation, all of you guys have the ability to figure out, okay, well, sports, there are ticket salesmen, there are suites, there are sponsorships, there are equipment managers, there are attorneys, there are accountants, there are coaches, there are owners, there's just a litany of roles that exist in sports. There's agencies that work in sports. There are brands that work in sports. So like it's to me, it begins like the process of like, let me understand what this landscape looks like. And then let me see if there are different things that initially interest me. And you might find that, okay, well, this might be like the thing that initially interests me and I'm going to go after it. Oh, well, what? I don't really love this, but maybe I'll move into that. But it's like, you got to have a little bit of a starting point, a little bit of a direction. And you guys, all of you have the opportunity to figure out, okay, like here's 2 or 3 things that I think I would love to do. Let me start doing research and figure out what are the qualifications. Do I know anybody? Does anyone I know anyone? Could I do a free internship just to get my foot in the door and, kind of try to keep it moving from there. But, figuring out what the landscape looks like would be like job one.
So being that you've personally got all these different experiences across brands and the property side as well.
Yeah.
What would you say were some similarities and a couple differences between the two for working in the brand and working at the property?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a really great question. So similarities, I think that businesses just in general that are like brands or properties, the ones that do really well have a very good pulse on who their consumer is, who their audience is, who their target is. And the ones that really deliver like value to that audience, that consumer, that audience, that like they surprise them, they delight them, they like make this experience special. They have like a real understanding of their mindset and what's important to them. They understand like their vernacular, they understand what's relevant for them, they understand what motivates them. Those, whether that's a brand or a property, if you are really consumer centric or customer centric, it goes a really long way. And that's like one of the properties of businesses that are highly successful, whether you are a brand or a property. So think of a brand like Nike. They're highly, highly consumer centric. Like they understand their consumer incredibly well. They speak to them, they inspire them, they they dress them and clothe them. They actually they're such an amazing brand that they're like they call it like a love mark. It's something you're proud to wear. Like you got Nike, it's like a good look. And, I think NASCAR did an incredible job of like creating an experience that like for their fans, they loved it. They ate it up. It just, it's a incredibly accessible sport. Right before the Daytona 500, you got thousands of people walking inside the track. Like you couldn't walk on the football field before the Super Bowl. But before the 500, you can walk on the track, and because they know they want to have that approachable, that family vibe, that openness, and they know that because they understand their consumers really well, and they kind of super serve them. So understanding your consumers like one like massive common theme that you see both across sports and brands and properties, and I'd say more macro across business overall.
Absolutely, and just tying that all together, I feel like essentially marketing is building your brand to make it more broad to everyone. So, what things can high school students do to build their own personal brands?
I laugh because from time to time when people talk about building their brand, I think it's like a bit of like a arrogant isn't the right word. It was like, hey, are you a brand? Are you really a brand? Do you think you're a brand? I think when you talk about like being a high school athlete or a business professional, like I don't have a brand, but I do have a reputation. And that to me, I think is the strongest corollary is like building out your reputation. And that is based on your behaviors and how you treat people, right? So, your behaviors are you a hard worker? Do you listen? Are you someone that accepts feedback? Are you supportive of others? Are you, are you competitive? Like, do you have that type of mentality? How do you deal with losses? How do you deal with successes? Those are like your behaviors. And then how you treat people is like, you can actually tell a person that is like good to the core, like how they treat people that they feel like they are above. Like, how are you treating like the manager on the team, or like a freshman when you're a senior? Like if you're an asshole to them, then there's probably like a little bit of asshole in you, and that's a part of your reputation, and some people like love that. They're like, that's a part of their swagger, and other people like kindness is a part of the way that they approach things, and that's a part of the reputation that you build. And so I would be mindful of like living the values that you ascribe to have as a person, like those values you ascribe to have as a person, and like living them out in a way, and that actually creates your reputation, which then becomes your brand. And just being thoughtful of that in kind of your various walks of life. Because I didn't grow up with social media, didn't exist when I grew up, and a behavior that you may have is like how you present yourself to the world. And if you decide to present yourself to the world as someone that like got it going on, and you're dripping, like that's a part of your reputation. That is a part of your brand. And like you got to ask yourself, is that what you're really about? And I'd encourage everyone to like not worry about like the trend, like worry about what's true about you and your values, and like present that in like the most honest and authentic way. And like, 99 times out of 100, that is like a good look for somebody and their brand. For me specifically, this is like a funny little insight to share with you. I told you about the variety of like different jobs that I've had kind of across my career. I haven't applied to any of the last like 5 or 6 of them. People heard about me through my reputation and the work that I'd done, and reached out to me to go and work at said place, whether it was Gatorade, NASCAR, Snap, I don't even have a resume right now. My resume has been my work, and my resume has been my reputation. So that to me, like, you talk about building a brand, like I think the brand is like the work you do, the way you behave, and the way that you treat other people. So that would be the focus that I'd recommend.
Absolutely. And going back to your brand specifically, I feel like it's obvious that you put in a lot of hard work and long hours into your craft and what you do. So how did it feel actually seeing that hard work coming to fruition as the first CMO of Fortune CM of Snapchat? My bad.
Yeah. It's obviously very gratifying, and I feel like humble and fortunate by the opportunity. And to me, it's a bit of a testament to that, to that mindset of just like trying to get the most out of this little body and this little life that I have, like trying to like leave it all on the table. So it's certainly been gratifying, but this is just like a really long journey. And I think every step in the journey has been, for me, and I'm still pretty young, right? I'm going to be working for quite a long time. But every step in the journey has been a place where I've like really, dove in and tried to work as hard as I could, try to have those behaviors that are like consistent with me and my values, and try to contribute and try to learn and use each one of them as like just a part of the overall evolution. And I feel fortunate here at Snap to be able to do it on a bit of a bigger stage as a CMO of a publicly traded company. But this is still just a part of the journey, and I'm trying to still use those same tools that we talked about that I learned as an athlete, and try to have those same like behaviors and values that I've tried to ascribe in terms of how I've approached my work. So it's been gratifying, but more work to do, and part of enjoying, your career is like, kind of appreciating the journey.
And speaking to the journey, I know that no journey is linear in the success, and it obviously comes with numerous bumps and blows, as I'm sure you can attest to. So is there a time in your career where you had to overcome adversity? And if so, how did you personally overcome that adversity?
Yeah, there's been several times in my career where either there was a promotion or a specific project or role or something like that I felt that I deserved, that I really, really wanted, and it did not work out the way that I wanted it to. And it goes back to that adage that I mentioned before about like the two things you can control is, how you prepare and then how you respond. So, I did my best to put myself in position to have the opportunities that I was aspiring to have. When they didn't work out the way that I wanted to, had to dust myself off and be like, all right, well, what is it that I can go and tackle next? Because I feel like, if I just like kind of keep working hard and keep this attitude, another opportunity will present itself. And ultimately, they did, down the line. But I've had a variety of setbacks where it's like, oh, I thought I was in line for this. Oh, no, it didn't happen. And, or maybe I was put in a position that I didn't necessarily prefer. And then my goal was to kill that, like if you're trying out for the football team and, you want to be a starting running back and they're like, nah, you're going to be a fullback. It's like, all right, well, I want to be the running back, but I'm going to block my ass off, right? I'm going to be the best fullback that I could possibly be. And that's kind of the mindset I've tried to take when I've had setbacks, and they happen. They're, to your point, it's not linear. You're going to have like these moments that are like ups and downs, and I try to do what I can as well as I can to prepare. And then like when things don't go right, it's like, what did I learn from it? And then like, how do I attack my next challenge or next project or next problem with that same enthusiasm? Because I want to make sure I'm doing the best that I can.
Perfect. So ending off with one more question for you, Mr. Keenan. Being that you said that like this is like not the end of the road, what can we see from you personally in your next stage in your career, and from Snapchat as well? Like what do you guys got cooking in the lab?
Oh man, we got so much cooking in the lab. Snapchat is a highly innovative company, and we have this ambition of Snapchat being like a platform that ultimately kind of enhances various aspects of your life. So right now it's about communication, but like actually some of this exists right now. If you open up Snap and you put the camera on and you just like hold your finger on it, like there's Shazam that exists under there. So you can actually find songs, right? You can scan different items and it actually can take you to Amazon to buy the item, or you can scan a plant and it can actually help you identify what that plant is. Like, so there's this world where Snap actually like almost represents like an operating system, and the camera becomes like your cursor. It's like the thing that you open up to as like literally a new operating system, because it can recognize where you are. It can recognize things that you see. It can recognize things that you hear. It's a way that you actually communicate. It's like way more rich than just like a text message. And it's a platform that like businesses are beginning to build on top of, like the example I gave you with Amazon and Shazam. So you could see a world where so much of what you want to do is like, hey, you and I want to make plans to go and see a movie together. Like we can actually buy tickets and browse and look at reviews of the movies at the same time through Snapchat. Do you want to play a game with somebody at the same time? We actually have games on our platform that you actually can play with each other. So there's a world where it just becomes like a little bit of an operating system for people that's really empowered by the camera, and that's a part of like the long-term vision that I'm super excited about. And then my job is as a marketer is to like tell that story, get you excited, get you inspired, get you to try it, and hopefully get you to continue to use it and make it a part of your life.
And lastly, what like I said, what do you see yourself fitting in that new space? Like, where do you see your career going after?
Well, I've always had the philosophy is I don't try to look like 5 and 10, like mad years ahead, because like the world changes a lot over that time period, But so I try to look at things over maybe like a 2 and 3 year horizon, and I see myself very much at Snap continuing to tell the story of the amazing features, amazing products of the Snapchat community. Where that could lead in the future, like who knows? Snapchat is a company that is still of moderate size relative to other tech companies and other big like behemoth industries, and maybe there's some opportunities in the future to do even more, but or do things on a different stage or for a different type of entity. But for me, the focus is going to be on like, am I excited about like the consumer? Do I feel like I can like add value? Is the companies, like, are their values kind of aligned with mine? And do I feel like it's a place where I want to do all of that hard work and spend all of that time? And if those things line up, I could see a lot of different places where I can hopefully go in and add some value.
And speaking to your point of adding value, I definitely found value, and I definitely feel that high school students will see value in this Chalk Talk as well. So I want to thank you for that, and I'm gonna end it off with Stack closing us out.
Thank you for that introduction and bringing me back in. But honestly, Kenny, that was amazing. I enjoyed every moment of just sitting back, listening, and watching Christian's enthusiasm when you were sharing some of your thoughts and suggestions. So thank you so much. It was super powerful. Our students are going to really grow from that. And Christian, Kenny, he did a pretty good job, right? I think he has a career doing this. What do you think?
He did an excellent job, man. You gotta reach out to ESPN. Get this guy connected. He did a really nice job.
Kenny, thank you so much. Christian, thank you for doing a great job and for all your hard work and making us proud as always. Sports Biz Campers, hope you enjoyed that. Kenny, thank you so much, man.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
See you, buddy.
See ya.